But tonight's big story, Cyclone Nivar is inching further closer to India's southeastern coast. The landfall expected later tonight between Mamalapuram near Chennai and Karaikal in Puducherry in a few hours from now with a wind speed of 110 to 140 kilometers per hour. Ahead of the landfall, air operations at Chennai International Airport have been suspended. All roads leading to Marina, Basant Nagar beaches closed temporarily. People in Chennai and neighboring areas told to not venture outside, especially near the beaches. 25 NDRF teams have been deployed, 22 teams on standby to assist the affected states. As we speak, over 1.25 lakh people in Tamil Nadu, 5,000 people from Puducherry already have been evacuated. Those are live pictures that are coming in at the moment. Wind speeds are rising as we speak there. And let me first go to S.N. Pradhan, the DG of NDRF. Remember, NDRF teams are on the ground there. As we play those pictures, Mr. Pradhan, give us a sense of what is the situation on the ground. Have you completed the entire evacuation, especially of those living in fishing communities along the coastline?
Well, Rajdeep, what has happened is that for the last 48 hours or so, we are on the job for evacuation and awareness drives. And I must compliment the state governments of Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry. They have also done a stellar job. And in combination, more than 1 lakh people now, as per report last received, more than 1 lakh people have been evacuated in Tamil Nadu itself. And more than 2,000 to 5,000 have been evacuated in Pondicherry. And the evacuation goes on, because we have some lead time till the landing happens, which will be probably in the small hours of the night. And as you have already said, 25 teams of NDRF are on the job and they are working around the clock.
You know, you have now almost perfected an standard operating drill with cyclones. We had Amphan in Kolkata, then we had the cyclone that just about bypassed Mumbai earlier this year, and now of course, Cyclone Nivar. Is there a standard operating procedure now, or do you have to treat every cyclone very differently in terms of how you spread out your teams?
Yes and no, because every cyclone in even the meteorological terms is a unique cyclone. I mean, this cyclone itself, Nivar, is a very unique and tricky cyclone, because we must remember that because of some geographical forces, the cyclone has transformed from deep depression to severe cyclone to very severe very quickly in a matter of few hours. But then, yes, there are some threshold procedures which are standard, and evacuation is very important one among them, and also the awareness drives well in time so that people are cajoled, convinced, because we must all remember that it's the poor people who are affected the most, and it is not very easy to leave your property and go. So that is a tough call, but I think the Tamil Nadu administration and the Pondicherry administration have done a wonderful job, as I say.
What's your biggest challenge that you're facing? The cyclone likely to make a landfall after midnight. Does that make things more difficult if the landfall takes place in the dark of the night?
Yes, of course. You know, we really have to plan now to wrap up all our preparations by probably dinner time tonight, or maybe by midnight tonight, because we cannot really wait for the small hours of the morning. 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. is just not on. So everything has to be wrapped up, and so that people can go and rest in the safe houses and the safer cyclone shelters. And then if there is still some X factor that happens, we are prepared for it. So that's why I have asked my troops to wrap up the work and get some rest, because it may be a very early start tomorrow, and we may have to be hitting the ground running even as the wind picks up. So that's a tough call, and it does make things difficult when the landfall happens in the dark.
One final question: how many members do you actually have on the ground at the moment, and are they spread across all the 3 states, presumably Andhra, Puducherry and Tamil Nadu? Or is the focus on Tamil Nadu?
Yes, certainly the focus is on Tamil Nadu plus Pondicherry, because that is where the cyclone is going to impact. And in Tamil Nadu also, it is about 7 to 8 coastal districts of northeastern Tamil Nadu, which is abutting Chennai, and of course Pondicherry, the whole area. So it is a population of about a few crores or 1.5 crores or so. But it is the coastal villages which will be the affected areas, and that is where we are concentrating.
Okay. Mr. Pradhan, to you and your team, you have a tough night ahead. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll of course keep coming back to you for updates. I wish you and your team all safety, and thank you very much for the work that your team is doing on the ground. Thanks very much for joining me here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Pradhan, the NDRF chief, joining me. Let's also go to our correspondents who fanned out to every corner of Chennai. Nolan Pinto is reporting from Pattinakammam in Chennai. Gopi Krishnan Unnithan is from Mamalapuram, just outside Chennai. And Akshaya Nath is in Cuddalore in Tamil Nadu again, where, remember, there are already heavy rains and there have been wind speeds of fairly substantial number there in that part also. Let's first come to you, Gopi Krishnan Unnithan, because Mamalapuram is where we are told some of the brunt of that landfall could take place later tonight, early this morning. Has the entire area around where you are been evacuated?
Well, Rajdeep, it's actually really interesting to note that the situation is quite normal here at the moment, because even I was surprised to see that just a while back when I was speaking to our colleagues, there was a power outage here and we were assuming that was a precautionary measure taken by the local administration. But over the last 1 hour, the wind speed has been quite low, or I may say it's just been around minimum or below minimum range, and that could be one reason now they have restored the power in the streets of Mahabalipuram. And there hasn't been a large-scale evacuation in the area because most of the houses here are actually properly built houses a little far from the coastline. So only those houses and people who were living dangerously close to the coastline were actually evacuated. And these vehicles that you see on your screens right now are actually the vehicles of the local administration, which is here on standby. They are just roaming around the streets to ensure that there are no trees that has uprooted, and if there is any such issue, they will have to press on to their jobs very quickly. So there are multiple teams deployed across the town of Mamalapuram. And also remember, this is one area where there could be a huge influence when this particular cyclone makes its landfall around 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock early morning tomorrow.
Nolan Pinto, you're in Chennai, where we are told already there have been power cuts since this evening, perhaps in some cases as a precautionary measure as well. What is the situation at the moment? Are the wind speeds relatively normal?
Well, Rajdeep, certain areas they've actually done that in order to keep the people, the citizens of Chennai safe. But where we are as of now, it's just pretty normal. It is drizzling, but the wind speeds, well, that has picked up. Rajdeep, it's like this. If you head towards the beaches, the Marina Beach and the areas around there, you won't be able to stand over there. It's that bad. You sit in your car starts to move. But when you come into Chennai city as such, it's drizzling, it starts to rain, it stops. The wind speeds over here are pretty high, but not that much that would actually scare people. But declaring a public holiday today was actually very, very good, Rajdeep, because in spite of the declaration, people are still out. The government decided so that in case of emergencies, people would be safe. Imagine, you wouldn't want flying objects to injure people. And what the government also did was made sure that whatever extra hoardings that they could actually see, they made sure that the municipal authorities removed them in order to keep people safe. And also, Rajdeep, the Adyar River, everyone remembers that nightmare that they had in 2015 when in Guindy, in fact, that particular bridge was completely inundated and it cut Chennai into two parts. What they have done this time around, they have allowed water into the river. They have told the people that we are keeping track of this, of what's happening there. And also those living on the banks of the Adyar River in low-rung areas, they have evacuated them and made sure that they are in rescue centers.
Right.
So all these steps basically done to keep people safe, and it's as of now working.
You know, Akshaya, you're in Cuddalore, where, you know, these are all parts which have at various times in the last few years been affected by cyclonic conditions. There was, of course, Cyclone Gaja in November 2018, claimed 45 lives, enormous destruction. Presumably, the administration in Tamil Nadu, with a strong reputation of efficiency, has really got its act together to ensure all precautions are taken.
Well, yes, certainly, Rajdeep. In Cuddalore, what we had seen is that the administration have built around 192 relief camps, 44 specifically for the fishing villages in the coast. And earlier today, when I was at Cuddalore, I had seen that water levels there also was increasing dramatically, and flooding was happening. And we need to remember that Cuddalore is a delta region, an agricultural base, and it always gets inundated, be it Cyclone Gaja, Cyclone Varda, Cyclone Thane. All these cyclones, we've seen that Cuddalore has been majorly affected, and that's one of the reasons why maximum deployment of NDRF was put there. And Rajdeep, just coming to the location where I'm currently at, I'm right now at Puducherry. I am at the shore, and you can see that there are monstrous waves which are hitting the seashore now. You can even hear the sound of those waves coming in. And you know, earlier today they were around 6 to 7 feet, but now it's around 10 to 12 feet. And you know, while talking to CM Narayan Swamy, he was telling that all the coastal lines along this belt will be affected, and hence all precautionary measures are in place. The SDRF, NDRF, all of them are on standby, and the local administration will be monitored from a master command center by the Chief Minister himself. So you know, today is going to be a nightmare, but they're really hoping and praying that along with the COVID-19 situation, this will also be like taken care of effectively, and Puducherry will survive. This is the hope at this point of time, Rajdeep.
Okay, so you're in Puducherry, not in Cuddalore. Sorry for that. Akshaya Nath joining me along with Nolan Pinto and Gopi there in Mamallapuram. Thanks very much for those updates. Stay safe. How is this cyclone to be seen at the moment? What are the precautions? We've had a year when we've had at least two major cyclones. There was Cyclone Nisarg, of course, off the west coast, and at the east coast you had Cyclone Amphan. M. Rajivan, Secretary, Earth Sciences Ministry, is with me at the moment. Also, Pradeep John is joining me. He's a Tamil Nadu-based man who tracks the weather. K. Srikanth is founder, Chennai Rains Weather Blog. But I want to come to you, Mr. Rajivan, first, because there's a sense, first of all, you know, if you could explain to our viewers a sense of a very severe cyclone. How is this being seen by people like you? This is the third major cyclone in a way in the last 9 months.
That is true. Nowadays, what we find is now when cyclone low pressure system form, there's a very, very high probability that it intensify into a very severe cyclonic storm. The probability of intensification is increasing every year. So that is attributed to global warming. And so this is not a surprise that this system has really intensified in the last 24 hours.
And how are you seeing this specific cyclone? Because we saw with Nisarg that it blew away in a way, and as it came towards the west coast, while it caused damage in Alibag and Raigad districts in particular, the intensity quickly sort of reduced. Do you fear the worst with this, given the kind of wind speeds that we are seeing at the moment, 120 to 130 kilometers per hour, probably not as severe as Amphan, but more severe than Nisarg?
Yeah, it is more severe than Nisarg. Normally, when cyclone falls over land, it normally decreases its intensity because it interacts with the land surface, so it reduces its intensity. But even 120 to 130 kilometer per hour, gusting to 145 kilometer per hour is quite good, strong winds. It can really give damage to many small installations, especially small houses, etc. And also, it's important that we should expect a lot of heavy rains along with this cyclone. And already in the yesterday, Chennai has experienced some 160 millimeter or so. And from morning to evening, already about 7 centimeter again. So it's a lot of pretty rain, good rains will come, and that can really flood the lower levels, especially low-lying areas of the city, especially Chennai as well as Cuddalore, etc.
Pradeep John, you're there in Chennai. Give us a sense, because this is a part of the country which has seen floods in 2015. You've seen cyclones in 2018 with Gaja, now possibly another cyclone. Has Chennai and the people of Chennai in a way got used to these potential natural calamities and take all the precautions that are necessary?
As far as now, the rain is the major threat for Chennai. Day before yesterday, we got 80 millimeters, and today morning 160, and till now I think another 80 millimeters. Over 300 millimeters of rainfall has fallen in the last 36 hours. So many parts are, some parts are waterlogged, and there will be, the rains are also still continuing. So once the rains stop, the water can start receding. So we are expecting the rains to continue till tomorrow morning, and then after then, step by step, the rains are expected to reduce. So winds are not the major threat as of now. Still, once the cyclone crosses land, Chennai is expected to fall in the southeast quadrant of the winds. So once it travels inland, we might tomorrow morning see some gusty winds also. And unlike 2016 and 2018, when Cyclone Varda hit Chennai, and 2018 when Cyclone Gaja crashed into Delta, it was during the drought period. So there is not much soil saturation. But right now, Chennai has got very good rain. So even a gusty winds of 80 kilometers, 70 kilometers might uproot a large number of trees also.
In fact, that's exactly what I was going to ask Pradeep John as well. Pradeep, you know, the fact is that we've seen in recent times trees in particular across our metros being affected. Nisarg did cause minimal damage to life, but a number of trees were uprooted. Pradeep, is that a concern there in Tamil Nadu, in Chennai at the moment, that the fragile ecosystem could well be hit by a cyclone of this magnitude?
Yes, unlike Gaja and or Thane in 2011 or Varda in 2016, it all went into the populated areas. So this cyclone, I think, is expected to cross a little bit above Pondicherry, between Marakanam and Kalpakam area, somewhere near the Cheyur Alampare belt. So which is not so densely populated or a metropolitan city. So the impact cannot be compared to an urban situation. But still, as you rightly said, there may be, these parts have been getting incessant rains for the last 36 hours. So the uprooting of trees and might be the biggest problem, I guess.
Mr. Rajivan, our administration, we asked this to the NDRF as well. Is there a standard operating protocol that is now fully in place? To that extent, are we as a country much better prepared to deal with cyclonic conditions than we were, let's say, even 10 years ago?
Yeah, compared to the last 10 years ago, and now we have very, very standard SOPs and protocols for issuing warnings, and also taking actions by the state governments as well as by the central government. We have good collaboration especially with the NDRF, NDMA, and also state disaster management authorities and state governments. So we have standard protocols we have perfected now as far as the cyclone is concerned. And as you may appreciate that India has one of the best forecasting capability for tropical cyclones in the world. It is well recognized by even organizations like United Nations.
And Pradeep, presumably all of you are in for a very long night, so our thoughts are with you all. Have you and others issued periodic warnings? Are you all using communication networks? I know radio has been very effective in the past. Are you using this to spread the word and ensuring full evacuation from all the low-lying areas or potentially hazardous areas along the coastline?
Unlike Gaja, where the mean sea level is on par with that Vedaranam, and so it's a very sensitive location. But the good news here is that Chennai is a little bit in the plus side. So the storm surge impact might not be as strong like compared to the Gaja, where the waves have come well inside the land. So we may not see such kind of situation here. Still, there will be a good, whenever a cyclone crosses, the northern side will see the storm surge. So we might see that entire the ECR coast to Chennai city, there might be a good storm. So people are well aware of this. There is also a public holiday announced. So not much people are roaming night. And one more good news is the cyclone is going to cross at night. So not much people, as I said, the uprooting of trees and falling over vehicles or those passerbys. So this might cause the most number of deaths. So that kind of scenario might not happen. And those people who are in a vulnerable location, if they have gone to the cyclone shelters, I think without much casualties, we can go through the Nivar cyclone.
Well, as I said, if there is one state which has now mastered the art, along with Odisha, of dealing with cyclonic conditions, it is Tamil Nadu, an administration that has developed an element of expertise in dealing with these situations in the past. So we wish everyone there along the coastline in Chennai and other parts have a very safe night, stay indoors, and let's hope that the cyclone causes minimal damage. Thank you all very much for joining me there from Chennai and other parts. We'll keep, of course, tracking the progress of the cyclone at the moment. Let's turn from there to our big political story today. And our political story comes from Bihar, because just weeks after Nitish Kumar's government returned to power in the state, there's been a major controversy. Has Lalu Prasad Yadav, the former chief minister who's in jail for the fodder scam, been trying to poach MLAs from jail in an attempt to topple the state government? That's the charge which has been made by the BJP leader Sushil Kumar Modi, who in an audio clip claims that Lalu is apparently telling a BJP MLA to remain absent on the voting day on the pretext of a pandemic. It's our other big story today. Are our VVIP politicians being allowed to use mobile phones to try and topple governments? Take a look.
Political slugfest in Bihar over an alleged poaching audio. Released by Sushil Modi. The audio purportedly has voice of RJD Supremo Lalu Prasad Yadav, allegedly dialing from jail and offering ministerial berth to BJP MLA Lalan Singh to skip speaker's election.
अच्छा सुनो, हाँ, हम लोग तुमको आगे भी बढ़ाएंगे वहाँ। अब तुम कल जो स्पीकर का चुनाव है उसमें हम लोग का साथ दो, तो उसका हम तुमको बनाएंगे, मंत्री बनाएंगे। कल तो इनको हम लोग गिरा देंगे, समझे ना? हाँ, तो
पार्टी में है सर, मैंने
पार्टी में है तो एब्सेंट हो जाओ ना। पार्टी में हो तो एब्सेंट हो जाओ।
अच्छा अच्छा, ठीक है।
कोरोना हो गया था, फिर तो स्पीकर हमारा हो जाएगा, तो हम लोग देख लेंगे ना।
तो क्या अब इसकी शिकायत भी आप कीजिएगा? इसकी शिकायत भी कीजिएगा?
हम बैठ के तय करें पार्टी फोरम क्या होना चाहिए।
Lalu is currently lodged in a bungalow converted into jail in Ranchi after conviction in fodder scam.
वही हम लोग को चाहिए, टीट वाला ही चाहिए।
Sushil Modi claimed when he dialed back the number, Lalu himself picked the call. Amid a fiery assembly seating, the unverified tape unleashed a big war of words, with the BJP accusing Lalu of misusing jail facilities to indulge in horse trading after RJD's poll loss.
अगर हमने ऑडियो को लिया है, डायरेक्ट बात हुई है, तो निश्चित रूप से ये फोन से बात।
सुशील मोदी ने भी कहा है कि उनकी भी बातचीत हुई है उनसे सीधे लालू यादव से।
देखिए, जो डायरेक्ट जब हमारे नेता ही माननीय सुशील जी ने डायरेक्ट जब बात किया है, तो फिर उससे क्या आप कह सकते हैं?
आरजेडी के विधायक इसे बता रहे डॉक्टर्ड है, फर्जी
नहीं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं।
हमने तो शुरू में कहा जनादेश की चोरी हुई, ये तो आपके सामने आसन के सामने चोरी हुई।
The RJD called the tape fabricated and result of Sushil Modi's frustration at losing the deputy chief minister's post.
जब स्पीकर का चुनाव चल रहा है तो भी चोरी की जा रही है और खुलेआम चोरी की जा रही है। कई ऐसे फर्जी वोटर्स को फर्जी एमएलए बना करके पीछे लोगों को बैठाया गया है। इसलिए हम लोग जो है इसका विरोध कर रहे हैं कि कानून से चलेगा, नियम से चलेगा सदन या बेईमानी से चलेगा।
Is RJD Supremo Lalu Prasad pulling the strings from a jail in Jharkhand where his party RJD is in power along with JMM and Congress? Or is the BJP out to discredit any possible challenge from his son Tejasvi Yadav? With camera person Deepak Kumar, this is Rohit Singh in Patna for India Today.
So is Lalu Prasad trying to stage a coup from jail in Bihar? That's the big question I want to raise. Joining me now, Chitranjan Gagan, General Secretary, spokesperson RJD, Dr. Sunil Singh, spokesperson JDU, and Yashovardhan Azad, Senior IPS Officer. Appreciate your joining us. Yashovardhan Azad, to you first before I come to the politicians. Are you surprised when you heard that there is a possibility that Lalu Prasad Yadav was using a mobile phone to connect with MLAs in Bihar and try to get them to switch sides? Is it unusual for a senior VVIP politician to get access to a mobile phone so easily in jail?
No, it's not unusual at all. In fact, why blame Lalu Yadav? He's just using the facilities provided, which he has accessed. In fact, if you remember the cases of Sashikala or Mr. Amar Singh or Subrata Roy, there are so many of these who have been given the kind of facilities which a normal prisoner can never dream of. In fact, Rajdeep, it's not only the politicians, the people who have the money, you know, about Manu Sharma, there are cases, there are Unitec officials who are getting such privileges in jails that even Supreme Court reprimanded Tihar jail. Now, mobile phones are not at all allowed in any jail manual, but there is certain talk time given. And in Tihar, for example, high security prison, the convicted prisoners are given some talk time. Otherwise, your India Today survey had revealed shocking details a year back, what is the kind of privilege being accorded to many of the BVIP prisoners. Now, this is a problem which is occurring because the manuals are written by the state government and prisons are under the state government. So normally it has been seen, and it has been so many cases like this, that these unusual facilities are being given to the BVIP, and it can only be controlled by the state.
I'll come back to what are the solutions, but let's turn to the politics of it for a moment, because Chittaranjan Gagan, लालू जी की आवाज है फोन पर, क्या आप डिनाई कर रहे हैं वो जो आवाज फोन पर है, जो पासवान, लल्लन पासवान से बात कर रहे हैं, बीजेपी के एमएलए से कह रहे हैं स्पीकर इलेक्शन में आप मत शामिल रहिए, हम आपको मंत्री बनाएंगे, क्या आप मानते हैं वो लालू जी की आवाज थी, वो पकड़े गए हैं इसमें, और जो वो कर रहे हैं वो बिल्कुल गलत है? जेल में बैठ के आप फोन का इस्तेमाल करके सरकार गिराने की साजिश कर रहे हैं।
देखिए, यह जो ऑडियो जो दिखाया जा रहा है लोगों के सामने, जो इसको वायरल किया गया है, यह बिल्कुल फर्जी है और एक साजिश के तहत, क्योंकि 2 दिन के बाद लालू जी के बेल पर हियरिंग होने वाली है कोर्ट में, इसको प्रभावित करने के लिए, और सुशील मोदी जी जो कि अब रेस से बाहर हैं, कहीं की चर्चा नहीं है, डिप्टी सीएम नहीं बन पाए, तो चर्चा में बने रहने के लिए और जो सो अपने नेताओं को ऑब्लाइज करने के लिए ईडन से स्टंट उनके द्वारा किया गया है।
आप इसे स्टंट कह रहे हैं, वो आवाज लालू जी की है या नहीं? क्या आप कहते हैं वो आवाज ही लालू जी की नहीं है?
जी नहीं, लालू जी की आवाज नहीं है, वह किसी दूसरे ने, बहुत से लोग हैं बिहार में जो लालू जी की आवाज में बोलते हैं, कई जगह कई ऐसे लोग हैं ऐसे। लालू जी की आवाज नहीं है।
आप कह रहे हैं लालू जी की आवाज नहीं है। डॉक्टर सुनील सिंह, स्पोक्सपर्सन जेडीयू, is this an attempt to corner Lalu Prasad ahead of his bail hearing which comes up in a couple of days? Is this about somehow or the other creating an impression that Lalu Prasad is still trying to play a role in Bihar politics? Are you in a way putting your own MLAs in a way on notice?
If Chittaranjan Gaganji is so confident that the voice is not of Lalu Prasad Yadav, I think like Lalan Paswan MLA had said, if the voice is of not Lalu Prasad Yadav, he will resign from MLA-ship. So if the voice is of Lalu Prasad Yadav, Tejashi Yadav should resign from his post. He should give that commitment. And second thing, it is not only this, a convict enjoying a privilege and having some facilities, I think different from Lalu Prasad Yadav, having the access to the phone, trying to stage a coup, and in that he's leaving a few messages, he's intimidating a Dalit MLA, he's subverting the democracy, a full blatant misuse of power, because RJD is in a coalition government in Hemant Soren government, so enjoying the power. We cannot forget that he is presently residing in the director's bungalow, and director is residing in circuit house. Don't you think it is what kind of a privilege is this? I think that
why doesn't Sushil Modi, who claims that when he rang up the phone number, the mobile number given to him, Lalu Prasad picked up the phone himself, why doesn't Sushil Modi also make the conversation public?
Look, whatever he has said, when he has said the thing, he has made the conversation public. He has said the thing that he has talked to Lalu Prasad Yadav. When he called up that number, it was, and he could talk to Lalu Prasad Yadav. And the Lalan Paswan MLA audio tapes, he is saying that the voice is of Lalu Prasad Yadav. It doesn't come out to be true. He is ready to face any consequences. And if the RJD spokesperson saying the voice is not of Lalu Prasad Yadav, will he give the same commitment that the Lalu family will resign from the politics if the voice comes of Lalu Prasad Yadav?
चितरंजन गगन, क्या कहीं ना कहीं आफ्टर योर डिफीट इन बिहार क्या एक डेस्परेशन आ गई है कि लालू प्रसाद को लग रहा है कि किसी ना किसी तरह से सरकार बनाने की एक कोशिश और करनी चाहिए, इसलिए कहीं ना कहीं वो उन्होंने ये मोबाइल फोन उठा के अलग अलग एमपीज या कम से कम एक एमपी एमएलए से बात की और कहा चलिए आप हमारी तरफ आ जाइए, आपको मंत्री बनाएंगे। चितरंजन गगन जी, क्या आप मानते हैं कि नहीं कि एक डेस्परेशन आ गई है, एक हताशा थी, एक डेस्परेशन अब है?
दावा करते हैं कि लालू जी की ही आवाज है। सवाल यह है, और सभी जानते हैं, कई टीवी चैनल पर भी आया है, लालू में दूसरे लोग भी बोले। अब ये लोग कहते हैं कि हाँ, अगर जांच में अगर सही पाया जाता है तो तेजस्वी जी इस्तीफा दें। सवाल यह है कि जांच ये लोग करवाएं, और जांच में अगर गलत पाया जाता है तो नीतीश जी को इस्तीफा देना चाहिए। और चुनाव, पूरे चुनाव के दौरान राजद द्वारा या महागठबंधन द्वारा या तेजस्वी जी द्वारा कभी भी लालू जी के उस रूप में लोगों के सामने में नहीं रखा गया। आगे क्या हमारी योजना है, क्या हम करना चाहते हैं, उन बातों को रखा गया। लेकिन एनडीए केंद्रित रहा। लालू जी इनके लिए मुद्दा थे, इनके लिए चुनावी मुद्दा लालू जी थे, और महागठबंधन तो जनता का जो मुद्दा है उसको चुनाव में मुद्दा बनाने का काम किया, और जनता ने उसको एक्सेप्ट किया।
Sir, like these rumors that are floating around, even that your party wants to break the Congress. Now there are rumors that Lalu is trying to wean away some BJP MLAs. It is an uncertain, fragmented mandate in Bihar.
Rajdeep, I is with a total rock solid unity, and we have got the absolute majority. And it is RJD who is trying to snoop into our majority, giving the offering of the berth. It is not once that he has come. This thing has come in the picture. A few days back also, a few people said that they are beating democracy and all kind of things. They are just reminding us of the Jungle Raj. What will they do? They want power by hook or the crook. But they are not going to get it. And let me tell you, these kind of things would be deplorable from all sections of the society, but all sections of the politics and everybody. These things cannot be tolerated in democracy. We have
Sir, let's be honest, sir. It's not as if the BJP has not done jod tod ki rajniti. You have been taking MLAs from different parties in Karnataka, in Gujarat, in other states, in Madhya Pradesh. So let's be honest. Today, Lalu Prasad Yadav is trying to create, let us assume it is Lalu's voice. How is he different from what the BJP leadership is doing? All of you want power, sir. Please, nobody can take the moral high ground on the issue of jod tod ki rajniti in this country at the moment.
Rajdeep, it's totally different. A convict flouting jail manual, calling somebody from the jail, intimidating a Dalit MLA, alluring him to give a ministerial berth, and some MLAs switching sides and some ministries being formed are two different things. You cannot equate the two.
You know, the fact is the jail manual, Yashovardhan Azad, what does it say very clearly? Here you've got Lalu Prasad today in Ranchi. He is in a state where clearly the JMM is in power with the Congress. These are allies of Lalu Prasad. Does that allow him in a way to
RJD
get away?
is also there. RJD is in the coalition government.
That's right. Does that allow him in a way to get away, Yashovardhan Azad? What happens to the jail manual? We are told that Lalu has been given a special bungalow where he is staying at the moment as part of his so-called conviction in the fodder scam case. Are you surprised that the jail manual is flouted so brazenly?
Well, I'm not really surprised because these violations have occurred almost everywhere, if you see. I gave the example of Karnataka.
So what happens to the jail manual? What happens to the jail manual? What happens to the writ of the IPS officer or the person who's in charge of the jail? Is he completely hostage to the political establishment?
Yes, absolutely. What is happening, Rajdeep, today, what is unfortunate is not only an IPS officer, the IG prisons is an IPS officer and the secretary of the department is an IAS officer. So obviously there is a lot of turning away of the eyes before the political masters, and these privileges are being accorded. In fact, three classes of people are getting these privileges mostly. One is the mafia, You have the Shahabuddin, you remember that case had to be transferred again to Tihar jail. And that is what is being demanded right now. Secondly are the politicians. And third are the people who have a lot of money. Now, there have been a lot of talk about the prison reforms. You know about the Mullah Committee reforms. You know about the Amitabh Roy reforms. Maybe you should give it, against Ram Rahim, there have been ordinary prisoners who have objected and who have filed their petitions because he's getting extra privileges. In UP, for example, there has been some development where they have made the use of mobile call a penal provision if some offense due to it is caused outside, so he'll be booked in a conspiracy case. But the problem really arises from the fact is the supervision of the jail manual and the implementation of the rules which are given there. And they are necessarily being flouted in such cases. In fact,
now who is responsible? Is it the politician or the IPS officer who's in charge of the jail? Why can't the IPS officer say, sorry, I do not serve my political masters. I serve the constitution of this country. I don't serve Lalu Prasad or Hemant Soren. I serve the constitution of the country.
Rupa, the IPS, did that in Karnataka. The IS officer there is the secretary. He's there, IS officer. There's a chief secretary over there, and then there is a political executive. So down the line, the accountability has to be is already established, but nobody wants to look at it through responsible eyes and turns it away. And as long as this dispensation is like that, you will keep having privileges being accorded to these people.
Well, that is extremely troubling in a way that a senior IPS officer tells us that things will not change in a hurry, that VVIP prisoners will continue in a way to misuse the facilities that are provided to them even after conviction. If indeed it is Lalu Prasad's voice, as the government in Bihar is suggesting, then clearly he has much to answer for, as do the jail authorities. Thank you all very much for joining me here on one of my talking points this evening. So if it's the jail superintendents in Jharkhand who are under the scanner for providing Lalu Prasad allegedly use of mobile facilities to try and stage a coup there, we have the Enforcement Directorate, which again remains under the scanner. A day after the Enforcement Directorate was accused of carrying out vendetta politics against the Maharashtra government and Shiv Sena leaders, today the battleground shifted to Bengal, where the Enforcement Directorate has now gone and issued notices to key Trinamool Congress leaders. Chief Minister Mamta Banerjee has hit out at the BJP, claiming that the Enforcement Directorate is being used as a political tool and dared the centre to jail her. Speaking at a meet in Bakura, she slammed the Home Minister Amit Shah's recent lunch with tribals, called it a gimmick. Here is more on the Battle of Bengal.
Ahead of the assembly elections slated next year, Bengal is turning into a battlefield. A day after raids on a Shiv Sena MLA in Maharashtra, the Enforcement Directorate has cracked the whip on 3 TMC leaders: Bengal Minister Farid Hakim, former Bengal Minister Madan Mitra, and TMC MP Prasoon Banerjee. Adding fuel to the fire, the BJP claimed half of TMC leaders will soon go to jail.
बहुत सारे भ्रष्टाचार में ये सब इन्वॉल्व है, आगे आप देखते जाइए, बहुत सारे आधे मंत्री इनके भ्रष्टाचार के आरोप में अंदर जाने वाले हैं।
देखो এটা ওদের পার্ট অফ দ্য গেম, আমরাও গেম হিসেবে নিচ্ছি। এটা পার্ট অফ দ্য গেম, ওরা এইভাবে আমাদের হ্যারাস করবে। রাজনৈতিক লড়াই যখন পারে না তখন এগুলো করবে, আমরা কি ভয় পাচ্ছি না।
With hordes of BJP leaders making a beeline into West Bengal to attack the Trinamool Congress, Mamta Banerjee has now decided to take the baton herself, launching a scathing attack against Home Minister Amit Shah right at the very place where the Home Minister visited just a few days back in West Bengal. Starting her attack from Bakura, Mamta Banerjee has now made it clear that the Trinamool Congress is also fully geared up for this mega Bengal showdown.
Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee fighting the toughest challenge after assuming power, lashed out against Amit Shah in BJP's bastion Bankura. She mocked the Home Minister's recent lunch at a tribal home in Bankura.
স্বরাষ্ট্রমন্ত্রী এখানে এসে বাইরে থেকে রান্না করা খাবার নিয়ে এসে থাকছেন 5 স্টার হোটেলে, নিয়ে আসছেন বাসমতি চাল পোস্তর বড়া, আর বেচারা আমার তপশিলি মা বোনেদের প্রতারণা করছে, চিট করছে।
Amit Shah on his recent visit had targeted Mamata's rule.
विगत 2.5 साल के अंदर भारतीय जनता पार्टी के 100 से ज्यादा कार्यकर्ताओं की हत्या हुई है। मैं बंगाल के मुख्यमंत्री को कहना चाहती हूं कि आप इस पर एक व्हाइट पेपर निकालना चाहेंगे। आपको आश्चर्य होगा, अधिकांश केसों के अंदर अरेस्ट ही नहीं हुई है, चार्जशीट ही नहीं हुई है। इस प्रकार का शासन बंगाल का भला नहीं कर सकता।
With the political temperature soaring in Bengal, the country is set to witness the fiercest election in recent times. Both BJP and TMC will not leave any weapon in their armory unused in this fight of the decade. With Indrajit Kundu in Kolkata, Bureau Report, India Today.
Back, a senior Congress leader and Sonia Gandhi's political aide for a very long time, Ahmed Patel, passed away late last night at the age of 71. Patel will be buried tomorrow in his native village in Bharuch. He was a politician whose friendships cut across party lines and therefore became an invaluable asset to the Congress and the UPA government in a coalition era. Take a look at just why Ahmed Patel was such a powerful and essential ingredient of the Congress party.
He was a formidable man. Now he is no more. His house in New Delhi's Power Courtyard had no nameplate. His WhatsApp profile had no DP. He needed no introduction in the corridors of politics. At different times over the last half a century, he was himself a center radiating power behind the power. But today, he is no more. Master strategist of the Congress party, he was a person known to multitask at several levels and across party lines. For his connections, he had more than one mobile connection, but there was one number and one handset that was sacrosanct. He used this exclusively to communicate with Sonia Gandhi. Neither his family nor anybody else knew the number that only he had. Today, that number has gone silent, for he will communicate no more.
When we were in power, he never wanted anything. When we were all out of power, he always struggled to keep the Congress party together. And such people will be remembered. And we cannot imagine that he has gone away from us.
From Bharuch, Gujarat, he came, ceding his loyalty to Indira Gandhi. It was 1977 and the Congress was on a rout after the debacle of emergency. 28-year-old Ahmed Patel won his first Lok Sabha election on a Congress ticket. This when party leaders were either deserting ship or were miserably failing the test of faith at the ballots. When Rajiv Gandhi handpicked Ahmed Patel, first as his political secretary in 1984 and then made him general secretary of the party, it was then that his role within the Gandhi powerdom was confirmed. In time, he became the person to rely on for Sonia Gandhi when she took charge of the party. He was the principal troubleshooter whenever it came to dealing with petulant allies or wayward party colleagues. A late-night phone call or a quiet word in the ear from AP was enough to get things done.
It is still difficult to believe that we have lost Ahmed Bhai, as I used to call him, AP as some others called him. He was a dedicated party worker above anything. For him, personalities mattered second and third where the party issue arose.
Ahmed Patel won the Bharuch Lok Sabha seat 3 times between 1977 and 1989. He had been a member of the Rajya Sabha since 1993. But Ahmed Patel shunned the limelight as political leaders seldom do. He was behind many ministerial appointments, but he himself never became one. He preferred working from behind the scenes. His interviews were rare, his bites on TV rarer still. Ahmed Patel in his time had wielded enormous power, but had done so without any show of arrogance and, more importantly, without any trace of malice.
And you can log on to our website indiatoday.com if you want to know more about the life and times of Ahmed Patel. Let's move on from there to our good news today story. It comes from Nanded in Maharashtra, where the son of a street vendor has cleared the medical entrance exam. Take a look at this report.
His parents sell peanuts and snacks on the street, and he has no access to private tuitions and electronic gadgets. But Ram Prasad Jungare has beaten all the odds to crack the national eligibility cum entrance test for medical admissions.
मेरे बच्चों ने भी पढ़ाई करते करते फुटाने बेची, फुटाने बेचते बेचते उन्हें पढ़ाई करे बच्चे ने। टीवी का नाद नहीं मेरे बच्चे का, कुछ भी नहीं, खाली उन्हें पढ़ाई करने का, स्कूल में जाने का, मेरे को धंधा पानी में हाथ बढ़ाने का मेरे बच्चे का काम। मेरे बच्चे ने इतना मेरा नाम कमाया, मैं जिंदगी भी सोची नहीं कि मेरे बच्चे इतना नाम कमाएंगे, मगर मेरे बच्चे ने ऐसा करा कि एक भगवान के रूप में मेरा बच्चा है।
Ram Prasad has not only made his family proud, but also his entire village. He was felicitated by the Nanded local administration as well. Ram Prasad is a product of the Lift for Upliftment project started to help NEET aspirants from the financially weak sections of society.
MBBS के बाद मैं MD बनना चाहता हूँ और वैसे गरीब लोगों की मदद करना चाहता हूँ और ये लिफ्ट में भी काम करना चाहता हूँ।
Students like Ram Prasad are an inspiration to millions of others and a reminder that hard work always pays. Bureau Report, India Today.
And may there be many more Ram Prasads out there. It's a classic story of upward mobility. We wish him all the very best. It's been our good news today's story. Let's move on to our image of the day tonight. The police took out a peace march in Hyderabad, which is facing civic polls next week that have become very confrontational. The BJP is taking a lot in that poll against the TRS, and Asauddin Owaisi also hoping to hold on to his fortress. Clearly, Hyderabad in the next few days is going to be the heart of another political battle. Let's leave it there. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.